This is episode 159. This is Bar Down Breakdown. You're here again with Mikey _CLT. You're here with Tommy _VVV. And you're also here with Georgie to the P. That's our homie, George Powell. And he operates the very, very awesome Limelight Podcast, which we've listened to a bunch of episodes of, and we're all about. He's also in a great band called Poeta, and we're super stoked to have him on. So, George, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to do this with us. How is your Monday so far?
It's like every other Monday. Nobody likes Mondays. But now that this is the icing on the cake, I am very satisfied with the day.
I used to be the only person that loved Mondays because I'm such a huge pro wrestling fan, and I used to absolutely couldn't wait for Monday Night Raw, but I've all but stopped watching the WWE over the past couple of years. So now I have nothing on Mondays to really look forward to. So this is a great thing for Monday because I just, it's a Monday. It's a bummer, but not a bummer now because
not anymore, baby.
George, man, we're super stoked to have you on. So cool. Let's just kind of dive right in. So, we're kindred spirits here in that we both have, undertaken the not always so glamorous job of hosting a podcast, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs, but, for what it's worth, it is really cool to kind of get to look at subjects, kind of in a different respect that you really love. For us, it's music and hockey. But, I'd love to kind of hear about how you decided to start the Limelight Podcast and kind of where it came from and, how it kind of broke ground.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me on. I'm honored. This is pretty cool. Don't really do live stuff too much anymore. So now I'm even a little bit more excited than normal when I do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, man.
And that intro song is absolutely catchy. So, I mean, I could, if you got that on a download or something, just send it my way so I can just put it on.
we blast Keep Flying on here all the time. Those are our homies and we love them. And I will definitely send you their stuff.
Please do.
It's funny that you comment on our intro because as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my God, George's intro is so much better than ours. Did you do that yourself, dude?
Absolutely not.
Oh, I was going to say, man, that is so impressive.
Now, my friend Clint Tustin, he is a genius. He was in Galactic Empire for a little bit, that cover metalcore band. And he does a lot of videography, cinema 4D kind of artwork, and I hit him up immediately. He works with August Burns Red a lot too. He's
nice.
Around the Philadelphia area, so it's I was like, dude, I just need something real quick, 2 versions, and I think it took him a week, and I was like, perfect, that's it, that's all I need, let's go. So
I might be sliding into his DMs too.
Yeah, hit him up. Oh, dude, his aesthetic is amazing. Very talented individual. So the podcast starting right. The initial question, don't want to derail. So. In a sense, Poeta was writing our sophomore album, and then the pandemic happened. Dude, we tried to get into the studio. Nobody knew what was going on in general, as how crazy this virus was, and everybody was completely locked down, business was shut, yada yada yada. So we obviously had to delay that. And working my full-time job in a sense, and not only doing that, I had nothing to do musically besides playing my drums at home. And I've always kind of had the idea of just starting a podcast because when I'm at local shows or just shows in general, I could just literally talk to anybody, and whether it's a brick wall or a human being. So I just want to, pick people's brains and just try to get to know who they are personally, or just enjoy the same things that we love. So long story short, I hit up a lot of people, DM'd or emails, because I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never started a podcast before. I have all of my credentials and stuff, and I had a couple of friends obviously help me out. And the first guest that got back to me, which I think was months after I did DM, was Kevin Lyman. So
that's a pretty sweet first person to get back to.
An honorary first guest. I said, yeah. And then when I kind of followed up with, hey, Kevin Lyman's my first guest, then everybody started coming in. So I was like, okay, cool. Now I got to do this. I got to get into this full time. So I did.
Yeah.
So, and here we are. I think I'm like 70 episodes in or something. I don't know. So I'm getting there slowly but surely. But I just have fun talking to our scene and trying to, get everybody involved somehow and do some research and, make sure that whatever we're talking about is what the people want to hear.
Yeah, for sure. And that's awesome. And I mean, a lot of things were kind of born out of the pandemic. And, we like to say on the show, we've said it probably a bunch of times that, of all of the terrible things that surrounded the pandemic and that was the pandemic, some of the best things to happen out of it was that, some of our favorite artists were able to kind of create some really great stuff. And that was kind of one thing out of it. And for us too, as a podcast, I mean, truthfully, we don't like to talk about it a lot because it kind of is like macabre in a sense, but like that pandemic really helped us out as a podcast because there were so many great artists that were just sitting home and not doing anything. And when we were like, hey, do you want to talk about music and hockey? And people were like, yeah, I'd love to do anything other than watch Netflix or Uber Eats groceries to my house. So, we were very fortunate to have, during that time, Jake from August Burns Red on, who, could have just kind of, shoot us aside and been like, yeah, these guys are small peanuts, but, it was great. It was really kind of a great thing. So, did you guys kind of find that, you kind of had a little bit more accessibility during the pandemic to people, like that more people were kind of open to having conversations and just, kind of being able to talk about music at a time when people weren't playing it as much?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was also still getting artists that were coming through that were still releasing albums through the pandemic because that was just on their timeline. Yeah, so it was fairly easy to kind of like contact, like the professionals and stuff too, because they're really not doing anything. They're standstill at a point and they're not touring. So why not take advantage of this? And and all the conversations I had were great. Like, although I was some stranger that had like no engagement right out of the gate at the beginning, it was like 5 episodes in, I felt very honored just to even have that conversation with them and give me that trust factor. Yeah. So it's cool. So those first like 10 people were definitely like probably the biggest steps to help me get this started. Especially because I cut 2 clips, one from Kevin Lyman, which was like Warped Tour 2021, kind of got that out of his head. And then James Pileggi with Harm's Way with the Running Man meme. Yeah. People love that meme.
Oh, yeah.
So that also went viral too.
So I'd love to kind of chat a little bit about, your presence on TikTok, right? So, I guess out of the gate, did you decide that, TikTok was going to be kind of the preferred medium to, kind of promote and get the word out about Limelight, or did it just kind of like happen organically, or like did it just come to fruition where you were just like, wow, like, TikTok has really kind of helped me engage a lot and helped me reach people? Or was it always kind of the plan from when this started for you?
It was definitely later on for sure, because the podcast is going to be 2 years old in April, and I've only been doing TikTok for a year.
Oh, okay,
like, literally a month ago. So it was like another year. The reason why I did is because we had really slow engagement at one point. Although I was like really, getting good conversations and making clips and putting chapters in the YouTube algorithm, for whatever reason, like, and I'm promoting it here and there and Reddit and Facebook, it wasn't doing anything. So I called my co-host at the time, who's now my bass player in Poeta, Zach Healy. He's nice. Not a bass player. He's not that good. He thinks he's not. But no, I love you, Zach. He's watching.
He is, and he did put you on blast saying that you're a huge hockey fan.
Ooh. We'll see if that's true later on. I mean, I like hockey. It's just hard for me to follow. But yeah, so I bought a ring light from Best Buy, and I sent a picture of him. I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm gonna start doing it. He's like, do what? I was like, take a wild stab in the dark, and it was TikTok, obviously. But again, if you go back to my first video, it's super cringe. And the one thing that really I wanted to put it out there for was promoting the podcast in a sense. But it's really hard to get people from TikTok over to the podcast sometimes, almost if you do clips and this and that. So I understand the algorithm, but dude, people just want playlists and new tunes. So I just keep throwing that out there. Plus, like, I didn't know there was a whole community been doing it for a couple of years already. So I was like, oh, like, I'll do something new. I'll just suggest bands. So I'm sure nobody's done that before. And then as my algorithm starts to understand, like, what my content is, then they start feeding me, like, you know, the Mosh Talk and all the other influencers on there. I'm like, oh, so I'm not doing anything innovative right now. But hey, people like what I have to say. So yeah, man, like, dude, and it's a crazy ride. And I think, like, and I love it too, but my fan base that has followed me over the time and the community that we built together, it's just very authentic, which is great. So but anytime I release some kind of content, it just gets out pretty strong right out the gate. So I'm very thankful for that. And but dude, it's like one of the biggest tools right now. It's insane. Yeah. So like you got to use it in a sense. Like you got to figure it out.
I mean, I think one of the most unbelievable things about TikTok is how it's almost revolutionized like the top 40 music industry. I mean, when you turn on FM radio, right? And I don't do it often, but you know, occasionally my wife does, but like almost everything on FM radio that has any sort of traction is stuff that like got popular on TikTok. It's like wild to me. Like you use like someone like Doja Cat as an example, right? Or like an Ashnikko, or like, you know, some of these artists that you know, were like purely independent, and then all of a sudden, you know, they had a track or two just kind of catch fire on TikTok, and all of a sudden they're, you know, seeing tremendous success and record deals and millions of dollars, and, you know, get opportunities to play the Grammys or the VMAs and all this stuff, and that all came from this one application. And I think there's something so wild about that. And I mean, like, I'm sure you've seen it too, you know, being that you spent a year on TikTok pretty extensively. You know, like what's your take on that? Like, what's your take on, you know, pop music kind of transitioning into something that is almost like fully fueled by this one app?
I mean, if nobody, I mean, I suggest everybody should do it. Honestly, like, I think for like 7 to 8 months, I didn't even speak into a microphone, and the engagement was there. So it was just all editing in a sense. But I strongly suggest like artists or people in general to get on the app for whatever you're promoting, whether it's, you know, your business or a brand that you're representing. It's just one of the most powerful tools out there. I mean, we've seen bands like Magnolia Park and Meet Me at the Altar blow up on this app, and like they're touring with Mayday Parade. Speaking of Magnolia Park, and then after that they're gonna be touring with Sum 41 and Simple Plan. It's just absolutely insane. And it's done wonders for me too, because I've also have made friends with a lot of the professionals out there. I'm possibly going to be doing a DJ emo night soon, or you know, I go hang out with other artists who in general want to come on the podcast, and they're reached out to me now, which I think is the coolest fucking thing. So I'm just meeting a bunch of new friends, but I think like it's kind of common sense now. If you're not doing it, unfortunately, you're shooting yourself in the foot. But like, I see you guys on TikTok and you're making great content, and like the whole layout's great. It's just everybody's got to just get on it eventually. I'm sure there'll be something next afterwards. You know, I don't know what that is, but I'm sure, like, you know, right now this is basically the one tool you got to use, or else it's like, you know, it's just been proven over so long. Yeah. So I mean, I just want people to understand that, like, you got to find your niche, your creativity, and just go for it. It's not easy. Like, I was sweating, you know, about to talk into a microphone in front of a TikTok app.
I was going to ask that because Tom and I are 35 years old, and we feel very old using the app. Like, at least I do. I feel so old, and I'm like a dad, and I'm like, why am I on this? But I know I have to be on this. So like, do you feel that way too at times? Like, all the time. All right. So I'm not alone in thinking that.
All the time. I just turned 30 last year. So it's like, you know, I'm like, you know, I won't use it as an excuse, but it's just like to not do it. But it's like, you know, like, dude, one of the most, it wasn't hate, but it was like a realization video. But some of our favorite pop punk and emo songs turned 20, or the albums turned 20. And people were just like, oh, fuck you, dude. No, you didn't. Like, the algorithm's coming for my throat. Like, I'm going to bed. Absolutely not. And it's like, you know, bands that you didn't really expect, like New Found Glory, Taking Back Sunday. So it's like, Yeah, sorry to burst your bubble, but it's just a fact.
I did expect
what I
that
mean?
because like I actually sometimes just go back and watch like Newfound Glory when they're at their peak and they were playing like Jay Leno and like those kind of late night shows where
Yeah.
nowadays I don't think that they even have as much pull, those late night shows, as they used to. And like
I'm not
Newfound
sure.
Glory was playing them and they looked like babies. Like Chad looked like a little baby. And like, I'm like, all right, yep, they're about 20 years old, these songs. And it makes sense.
Yeah, and we don't see a lot of those scene bands like really on those late night shows anymore. Like Turnstile was on recently. I think it was Jimmy Kimmel, which was fucking awesome. And then I want to say this was years ago, but Asking Alexandria when they released Reckless and Relentless, I was like freaking out. I was like, yes, like we need this out there. Like, but we didn't really have a platform to do that. I think that's why TikTok is like so innovative because it's very specific to the user's liking. So if you're in that community, if you're in that scene and you like that type of music, it's very easy to put you in this bubble and just have that content out there where it's constantly engaging. So very smart tool. Very smart
Now,
tool.
I guess my question for you is, and you kind of hinted at it with like the carryover from TikTok to then someone actually going to your YouTube and watching your interviews or going onto like Spotify and checking out your playlist or actually going and checking out Poeta. Like, have you seen some correlation? Because, you know, let's not like discredit the following that you have on TikTok. Like, you have more TikTok followers than state champs. Like,
Do I really?
you do.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
That's,
like
that's so weird. And they actually, I tagged them in a video. It was like bands live versus studio or studio version versus live. So I went to one of their concerts. So that's pretty cool though.
yeah, so like that's legit. Like that's gotta have some pull. Are you seeing that translate? Like in the podcast world, because I have seen it in the music world. Like you mentioned Magnolia Park, that band Loveless, Brave Weather. Those are bands that are blowing up on TikTok right now. And when you go and check out their Spotify monthly listens, like they're also blowing up on that as well.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. So when I initially started, it was more music suggestions, and every once in a while, I will put a podcast clip in there. I've seen the podcast clips come through my algorithm. Mine's not what theirs looks like. I think that's something I have to take into consideration. But mostly, what they want is new music, which is fine. Like I'm not worried about it. Like I appreciate their trust in my opinion with putting out music. But the crazy thing is, like, overnight, I see significant numbers. Like, I did some tests to try to get some social media marketing jobs at some companies around where I live and such, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm working with a couple of artists right now. Dude, like, one video, will change their numbers on Spotify within 24 hours. Like, Poeta's numbers went up significantly. Like, dude, we were at, like one of my biggest videos, like I want to say like last year, we were at like 238 monthly listeners because we were stagnant and like we lost all of our momentum when we were done with Warped Tour and the pandemic. And then I had us in a collab video with like 7 other artists, and it went from like 200 monthly listeners to 7,000 in 48 hours, and then it shot back down to now it's like hanging out around 2. So musicians need to really get on there. Plus, like dude, the crazy stories. Like we played a show recently at House of Independence with our friends in The Ones You Forgot. But I went to a bar afterwards, and this dude looked like straight up like Post Malone. And I said that like to one of my buddy's girlfriend while we were hanging out there, and he kind of like overheard me. And he's like, "Yo, did you say I like look like Post Malone?" I was like, "Yeah, dude, you kind of do actually." He's like, "Yo, did you ever see that one video with where the kid's in his car and his friends play his song on the radio or something?" I'm like, I think so. Yeah, it kind of rings a bell. And he's like, "Do you know the name Luya?" I was like, "Yeah, I actually do." He heard that one song. He's like, "Yeah, that's me." I was like, "Get the fuck out of here, dude!" And like, even TikTok's blowing him. It's just like the craziest thing is just like see these creators in person now and the things that it's done for them. Like he had that video blow up on TikTok, and he played like a sold out show at House of Independence like in a week. Like what? It's insane. I think it's perfect for music. I think it's perfect for any business, any content creating opportunity. You just got to do it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think that you know, even if it's something that you're not, you know, super familiar with, you know, kind of gaining that familiarity and just giving yourself the opportunity to be on that platform just to, you know, to reach people is really important. But so I have a question, drummer to drummer. You know, I mean, you guys got an incredible get in Dale Crover. I mean, that's just unbelievable. I mean, you know, the fucking guy is the drummer of the Melvins. You know, that's
that was
incredible.
Zach's doing, dude. That was Zach's doing.
So
Zach
yeah,
got him, Tomo Fujita, and he got one more. He definitely got one more. I can't remember the other one, but that was all him.
so, but I mean, like, what was it like, you know, having a conversation with someone like that? I mean, like, you know, for me personally, you know, the fact that he played with the Melvins is incredible enough, but you know, the fact that he played with Nirvana was, you know, like that's something that is unbelievable. But what was that conversation like? Like, you know, what did that kind of feel, you know, being a drummer, kind of in the presence of a drummer like that?
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't there for that
Oh,
conversation.
you weren't there for that. Oh, okay.
No, but
I thought
no, it was in one of those things where I actually couldn't make it. I was like, Zach, you can like run
Mhm.
it for me if you want to. So I sent him like all over the overlays and such.
Yeah.
But that was one I really looked forward to talking to about. It
Mhm.
was just one of those things where work schedule fell into place. And he also got Billy Sheehan, which like that
Oh,
dude is
wow.
an absolute
Yeah.
monster on the bass.
Mhm.
Like that, how he was actually like playing bass like while we were having conversation through the podcast. I was like, this is so fucking sick, dude. Like
Mhm.
I let Zach like run those podcasts in full. But I haven't had much drummers on as I would like to, and I'm trying to. I'm just honestly, I think it's just the PR companies coming to me and like I'll listen to what they send me, and if I like it, I will definitely bring them on and try to have a conversation.
Sure, of course.
Right out the gate. Do you still what do you play now, Tom?
Well, I'm a drummer. Although I kind of have to, I guess, say that loosely because ever since I moved to Orlando, I haven't really had the opportunity to play. But you know, back when I lived on Long Island, I was in a couple of different bands. You know, I was in you know, like kind of a sort of a power poppy Weezer sort of band. I was in a post-hardcore band. I was in a more punky band, a more indie band. I mean, I did a lot of stuff and had a lot of kind of a lot of deep connections there, which I definitely miss. But I mean, I've been playing drums since I'm 8, and even though I haven't played in a while, I'm sure if you put sticks in my hand, I could still make some noise.
Absolutely, it's like riding a bike, dude.
Yeah,
Same
for
thing.
sure.
You know what I mean?
But you know, I always appreciate getting the opportunity to talk to other percussionists, and you know, just because a lot of people don't, a lot of people get the wrong idea about drummers that aren't musicians. They just think like we're the kind of the idiots that sit there and sort of just go boom and go bang and all that kind of stuff. So I guess this is probably a good a time as ever to transition into talking a little bit about Poeta. So you're the drummer and percussionist for Poeta, correct?
100% the
Awesome.
Original drummer and percussionist. There
So-
has never been another one.
So let's talk about that. So you know, give me some insight you know, about Poeta. How did you guys you know, kind of come to start the band, and you know, kind of maybe give me a little bit of the lead up to the genesis of how you know, that project started for you guys.
It's an honor and a privilege to be with those collective gents in this band. Very talented individuals. We all hold something very special that basically like is a huge asset to the band, which is like really hard to find. But from the genesis part of it, I was hopping around like New Jersey to find a band to play with back in like 2014, 15. I had a metalcore band. We played an Ernie Ball stage on Warped Tour for Battle of the Bands. We broke up, went like, you know, show to show, trying to find musicians. And our vocalist Kevin was in a basement, and I was jamming with him and like 3 other people, but he got the invite. So we all jammed out, and then he didn't want to be a part of it. He just didn't feel the vibe for it. So I was like, cool, yeah, whatever. And he sang, I can't specifically remember what he sang, but whatever he sang in that basement to show off his talent, he just has this high tenor. And I was like, holy shit, this kid's got a gift. So unfortunately, he just like didn't, you know, he didn't want to be what we were working on as the project. So I said, okay, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he texted me when I was on my way to a job on the train to Philly. He's like, hey man, like I really love your drumming and shit and blah blah blah. Like you're super fucking talented. And I just wanted to know if like you wanted to start a band. And I was just like, holy shit, this is it. Like this is gonna be the start of my music career. Like I'm gonna get my feet wet in this industry now finally. Yeah. So because of, and we started jamming in a garage, started writing. He brought on Anthony. They played in another band called, I think it was called Call Me Kings or something, like way back in the day, post-hardcore band. They did a cover Samson, obviously, with this high tenor. Yeah, and then we recorded in a studio with my friend Bruce. He's out in California now doing big things. I love it for him. I'm so stoked for him. Did it in his parents' basement, recorded that. Got management out of it, got signed to CI Records out of it, released the album in 2017 or late 2016. No, it was definitely 2017. It was March. And then we went on Warped Tour for like 10 days. That's great. It was a very fast paced.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Situation. And then the pandemic was just like, all right, we're gonna stop right now. I was like, fuck, we were doing so well. So
yeah, I mean, I'd love to just real quick just get talk about you guys having the opportunity to do Warped Tour. That's pretty wild. Kind of what was that experience like?
And just to put a time, is this the last Warped Tour that you guys played?
Second to last
one.
Run.
Okay.
Second to last full country one, besides the festival one that they did in 2018 for the 25th anniversary. As you can tell, maybe, I don't know, but like my part of the band is like branding and brand awareness. I don't know if that correlates to any of the content that I do, but that was my main job. So basically, like, Skull Candy was doing this promotion where they were sponsoring bands. I think they were picking 3. So I signed us up for it, and we played one show, and it's like the whole voting thing or whatever. But we played a show at the Knitting Factory in Brooklyn, New York, with 2 other bands. One of them was Powell, super fucking cool prog instrumental, like rock band, alt band. They didn't care. They were just there to see the show. So the competition was just between us and Small Talks. And in an fortunate way, we did win overall. But then things got complicated, and they put both bands on the tour. Oh. Now, we are on the East Coast. We're from New Jersey. I'm from Philadelphia. But they put us out in the Midwest. So we did the Midwest for 10 days. And, dude, just the experience in general, being on that tour was an honor and a privilege. Just, meeting other like people, in bigger bands, smaller bands, roadies. Like, it was just, I felt so at home.
Sure.
It was one of my biggest goals I've ever had to do, but like Skull Kings hooked us up. Like, we had a bandwagon, we had a per diem. Like, we weren't getting guarantees, but like, it doesn't matter. You're like a small band from New Jersey in Bricktown or whatever you want to call it, and you're playing you're the first band playing every day for 10 days.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll take that. What do you mean?
Absolutely.
So, dude, like I said, it was an honor and a privilege, and it's a shame that the whole tour is completely done. But all good things come to an end, and it's like I'm just very thankful I was a part of that process. But I don't know how many times you guys have been on Warped Tour, like to just go for the shows, but
too many.
It's yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we all miss it, There's some goofy people that work on that tour too, which is like, I made friends with all those goofy fucking people. So it's like, it was cool, man. And everybody works their dicks off. Like, like everybody just works so hard, man. Like, it's not easy. Like, I would wake up every morning just for the rest with Poeta, and we'd go to the Skull Canyon stage, and we'd be hanging out with like War on Women or a bunch of other bands, or Microwave, like playing the Skull Canyon stage, and we would help do whatever we had to do to build the stage and get ready for the day. So
love that.
Big cool family of like just fucking just people in our scene. Absolutely insane, man. It's the coolest experience ever.
Awesome.
Now, I guess you hinted at it when you had Kevin on. Like, it sounds like we can't write off Warped Tour completely.
If you go back through some of the conversations he's had, I think he wants to sell it. I forget who his partner is, or was, or whatever the situation is. But legally, Warped Tour can't come back until 2023. But I don't think Kevin's going to run it.
Okay.
I think Kevin's like that's just an opinion.
Yeah.
He's not said that to me at all, full disclosure. But I think it's going to come back. I think somebody's going to buy it. To be honest, I think the Madden brothers, because they have a hand in alternative press, I think they might buy their way into Warped Tour and bring it back.
Oh, okay.
So that's just my, opinion going forward with it. But I think it will come back eventually. I mean, look at when we were young. That whole festival is a fucking absolute crazy, lineup in itself. So.
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely.
So I guess I want to comment on that. Like, yeah, it's fantastic for the scene, especially for those bands who were playing like the 2002 Warped Tours, 2003 Warped Tours, and they were like, have been grinding it out for 20 plus years, like the Baysides of the world and the Taking Back Sundays of the world. Like, it's a great opportunity for those bands. Like, now they can have that spotlight, right? And they can actually get paid their worth. Like, they can get a nice chunk of money to play this awesome festival. But the thing that made Warped Tour special, in my opinion, is the community. Like, yes, you had those huge, massive bands playing, but then you also had the Poetas of the world. You had these other bands who were the smaller, the Magnolia Parks, the bands that like are just as talented as the main stage bands, but they just haven't gotten that break yet. And that, I feel like that's what When We Were Young is missing. Like, there's not any of those like smaller tier bands on it. And I wish that there was.
To be truthful, and I understand where you're coming from. I don't think it's that festival is built for that. I don't think that festival is built for exposure. I think it's purely built for nostalgia. And I think that's why they're selling tickets to that. I think that's why that show is the way it is, because it's not made for, up and coming bands to like cut their teeth and get that exposure and be able to play. It's not. It's strictly made for these bands to come together, have an opportunity to like kind of share a really interesting experience, but also I think it's about them getting paid. It's about them, all of these bands that really took a pretty tremendous hit during the pandemic to get an opportunity to make a little bit of money. The more and more I kind of look at When We Were Young, and the more and more I kind of look at it like taking off like the rose colored glasses, that's the way I look at it. I look at it as an opportunity, not a cash grab. I don't think it's, like Live Nation trying to bleed people of money. I think it's Live Nation trying, in a sense, to give these bands back some of the money that they lost from not being able to tour for all of 2020 and most of 2021. So, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Mikey, like in saying that like you'd prefer it if there were some opportunities for some smaller bands to be on it. But I think that when Bamboozle comes back, I think that is going to be the festival that does that. I think they're going to have their, set lineups of bands that are, like your mainstays in the scene. But I think it's all going to be enveloped by these smaller bands, on smaller labels trying to get recognition and kind of make this next step up. I don't know. I'd love to hear kind of your take on that, George.
I have a few takes on it, but if you look at the lineup, like that's like 90% of like what Warped Tour was, and that was when Kevin was putting these artists on and they were being discovered through like Warped Tour. Like, and yeah, Mike, I agree with you. Like the community was definitely like the coolest fucking thing that we can do to come together, with that scene, and like we can all relate to know each other with like what we love from music and pop punk and emo and all that shit. I do miss it terribly. But like I said, When We Were Young, like there's so many artists on that's like, dude, they started on Warped Tour. Like from top to bottom, seriously. I mean, I know like the Lindas, I don't know if they played Warped. I think they did. I know Meet Me at the Altar hasn't. But because they're still young and up and coming. But I mean, in general, I get that it's like a nostalgic throwback to the whole scene in itself. And here's my take on it. The first thing is that I think this was actually created before the pandemic. I talked to my co-host Shannon Convoy, who is in the music industry full time. She works for something that I'm not going to say because nobody needs to know like her personal business, but she's in the music industry full time, and she has like I think some kind of insight to being like, when Warped Tour was done, I think this was already in the talks because it's like literally like every single big band that was like growing up and such. I mean, I think it only got bigger because of the pandemic, because TikTok, again, like it's inevitable at this point, but it made it relevant again.
Sure.
When they were playing like All Time Lows, Dear Maria, that was like a whole thing, and
sure,
like we've all seen it.
Simple
So
Plan
like,
had one.
Oh, that's right. That's dude. And it's like crazy. And it's just one song. And these songs are like coming back and turning into like Dear Maria turned platinum because of TikTok.
I'm pretty sure like Hawthorne Heights has one right now.
They
like
definitely do.
Like a viral TikTok clip.
I love
doubt it, yeah.
I love the one with this wildlife. I think it was Kevin, where MGK was in an interview talking shit on like New Balances on Warped Tour, and he put them on stage with Warped Tour like wearing New Balances. Like, you don't need those fucking comfy shoes, dude. You're not a fucking punk, bro. I was dying so hard, and like he just made it seem so real. That was honestly one of my favorite viral TikToks from our scene was them doing that. Oh my god. But yeah, going back to when we were young, my final take on it is I actually started a petition to get Magnolia Park on that show. I think the lack of representation between women and people of color on there I think it's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
Especially when like, I don't know, like it's like when we were young, but it's like, who's we? Like white people? Like, what do you mean? Like, this is just really just like, like where's Coheed? Where's Kenny Hoopla? Where's Magnolia Park? Where's Coheed? Where's Travi? Yeah. Like, and I talked. So here's a crazy story. So I made the petition. I think like I said, the representation of people of color and women is kind of like disgusting in my opinion, but I will be talking to that a little bit more with some other people in the industry. And I made a video and I talked to Shayna and I said, I want to make a video about this. I might start a petition, but I have to ask Magnolia Park's permission first and blah, 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 blah. And I said, like there's so many bands that should be on this fucking lineup, like just in general as a thought. And she said, yeah, do like Gym Class Heroes. I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, you're right. Gym Class Heroes deserves to be on this. So long story short, Travis saw it and he reached out to me, and I think we're going to be working on something soon. Not right now, maybe like come summertime, but I want to sit down and have a conversation with him because he's basically like in agreement with me. Like the lack of representation is kind of awful, but it's like, dude, like I get that it's like a nostalgic kind of festival and such, and the way they went about it, they knew it was going to sell out right away. Like there's no sponsors at all. And there's just like nothing that is like funding this besides like the hype in itself. And it absolutely worked. But I think they should have thought of considering more younger bands to go on there because that's what we got to do to bring up the scene, And now you see festivals like So What doing it. And, cause they got kind of called out about it. Now you're seeing other festivals like doing that. But Warped Tour was the staple for discovering the new and up and coming, and that was how that our scene kind of grew up with being relevant or getting that opportunity, that chance. Yeah. So, but now it's TikTok. Now it's like there's other tools and such. So, I just think that when we were young, it's just going to be a good time. But I just don't think they hit the nail on the head with the lineup, with some of the representation, because it's not there at all, man.
Yeah,
it's really not.
And that, and that's kind of hard to ignore, even trying to the argument that I think people are trying to make in trying to combat that is where they're trying to pull all these artists from in the time frame, but the reality of the situation is even though there was, probably in the mid 2000s, a little less representation of women, people of color, and non-binary peoples and all that kind of stuff, it still was a big part of the the industry at that time. I mean, like, I think of bands like Rilo Kiley or Raina Maria, or all of these bands that like were very much they were part of that scene at that time, like they and both of those bands have have women or people who are non-gender conforming in those bands, and they were overlooked, and I do think that there's a really great opportunity for Live Nation and the promoters of that festival to kind of move in the right direction there. So I definitely applaud you for at least bringing some more eyes and ears to that kind of fault that they have there, that maybe people weren't really even considering until you put some eyes and ears on it. So for that that's an awesome thing. It really is.
Yeah, I just got to talk about it more.
Yeah.
In a sense, like, because it's just one of those things that, like, you look through the lineup and it's all fun and dandy, but it's like they're like the so many bands off the top of my head were just like, dude, where are they? You know what I mean? So
Yep.
In retrospect, I hope at least one band drops so Magnolia Park can get on, because they deserve to be next in line. I mean,
Agreed.
they're fucking killing it, dude.
Yeah, no, they're a great band. They're friends of the pod. We love Magnolia Park. So I'm real quick. I'm getting scary thunder here. Very scary Orlando Thunder. So if for some reason I just stop existing, it's because
All right,
my
quick,
internet.
do DraftKings, but so I don't have to do it.
So let me real quick do this ad read, because Mikey's terrified of words. But this time I actually get to talk about hockey, which is fantastic. The NHL season has been packed with dirty dangles, hat tricks, snipes, sellies, big wins. And as the action rolls on, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has your shot to win big too. So new customers can bet just $1 on any team and get $150 in free bets if they win. So that's right. A bump in the win column for your team means free bets for you. And if Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you still have a shot to light the lamp. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings daily fantasy hockey contests. And DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with just their first deposit. So as we tell you all the time, download that DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team and get $150 in free bets if they win. It's that easy. So again, that's promo code THPN. That's the Hockey Podcast Network, THPN. And that is at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. And just remember, you have to be 21 years or older. Restrictions apply. See show notes for details. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado or New Hampshire, 888-789-7777, or visit http://ccpg.org/chat. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-877-770-STOP. That is in Louisiana. 877-8-HOPE New York, or text HOPE New York. That's 467-369. Visit opgr.org in Oregon. Call or text TN Redline, the Tennessee Redline. It's 1-800-889-9789. That's in Tennessee. Or 1-888-532-3500 in Virginia. $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. That disclaimer is way longer than it ever was before.
What states didn't it cover?
I know. You got to remember that sports books and sports betting is starting to become legal in a bunch of different states. So if you're into, sportsbook and betting and all that fun stuff, DraftKings is the place to do it for sure. If you're not into that, we don't judge. I mean, some people dig it, some people don't, but we're super pumped to have DraftKings as one of our sponsors. They're giving a lot of people an opportunity to win some money, which is cool. And if you're a wrestling fan, they just partnered with AEW. Their past pay-per-view had DraftKings all over all of their stuff, which was very fantastic to see. So yeah, that's what we got there. So
how do you bet on wrestling?
I don't know, man. You just do. You do what you want to do. You know, you could bet on wrestling.
Maybe
You bet
the time of the knockout or something.
yeah, I mean, you could bet. You could bet on anything. I mean, if
what color pants they're gonna wear. I mean, Gatorade in the football scene is fucking hilarious.
all those prop bets, man. You know, the Super Bowl prop bets where you can bet on the color of the Gatorade, how many jets are going to be in the flyby, if the national anthem is going to be longer than 3 minutes. Hell, you could even bet on whether the performer of the national anthem is going to flip the octave at the very end of the national anthem. You know, you could bet on that if you wanted to. So it's awesome. I mean, you know, hey, listen, if you're into betting, if you're into sports betting, DraftKings is definitely the place to do it. So moving on, let's chat a bit about some hockey stuff. So, you know, we had kind of chatted a bit before we got on the show. You had said to us that you are just, you know, not the most humongous hockey fan in the world, and that's just fine. But the question I have for you, which is probably the most important question, and you said you're about 30, right? No, you said to me?
Yes, I am 30, yes.
So there's a chance that you might have owned a Nintendo 64. Is that true?
Oh, 100%.
And there's a chance that you might have had the opportunity to play Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey. Is that true?
I had the opportunity.
But you didn't do it.
No, I didn't do it.
Wrong! Because that happens to be the best. And I would put it up against your NBA jams, your NFL blitzes. I would put it up as one of the best arcade-style sports games that I have ever played.
Oh, I would probably agree with you if I played it. Like, I never liked the NFL blitz. Like, that was never my thing.
It was 2-on-2 hockey. You got like scores that would be like, you know, the Bruins 18, the Flyers 15, and it was great. It was just so much fun to play. But you know, hockey is one of those things that always, you know, even when it was, you know, more popular in the 90s, it was still always that, you know, that quote unquote fourth sport in America. It always kind of took a backseat to baseball and football and basketball. But now we're kind of in a very interesting time, right? Because we're kind of approaching an interesting thing happening in the next month where there might not be baseball, right?
Yeah, with the whole you know, strike going on and stuff.
And that's kind of a crazy thing to think about, because without baseball, you know, coming in April, and I'm sure eventually they're going to come to an agreement with the CBA and maybe they'll only miss a couple of weeks. But if it does get so crazy where there is no baseball season, that means that the only thing that's going to be carrying, you know, professional sports in America, realistically, and I mean, I don't want to dog on soccer or tennis or golf or anything like that. They're just not in the same stratosphere.
Oh no, Tom, I'm about to make you eat your words, because
go for it.
Charlotte FC had their first game. 75,000 people for an MLS soccer game.
However, and I understand that, and I'm sure that as far as live events are concerned,
oh yeah, yeah, it's not going to carry over to TV, but you know, you can't ignore the fact that, you know, over the summer, soccer and MLS will still be drawing some huge crowds.
And you're absolutely right. But I think, like I said, of the big four professional sports, if there is no baseball, hockey and basketball are carrying that torch until the NFL starts up. So I think it's kind of a very interesting thing that's going on. So George from Philadelphia, which is just a tremendous sports town. You know, I know.
Expect to differ.
Well, I suppose. But I mean,
I said I was from Philly when I was in Nashville for the holidays, and then, like, you know, so you're an Eagles fan? Yeah. And he got super offended. Oh, would you have fun burning your city down? I'm like, we didn't burn our city down. I was like, I think we broke like 2 light poles and like flipped some things. Like, whatever, dude.
Listen,
like,
you know, Vancouver probably did worse things. And, you know, us and the homie Nick from Chief State talked about that last episode, about how Vancouver lost in the Stanley Cup Finals twice and decided to burn it all down. But, you know, I guess what else do you do in Vancouver other than, you know, burn some stuff down and
yeah, it's just cold. There's a reason for doing so.
Yeah, right. That's why they were doing it. They weren't rioting; they just were cold.
Yeah, they were fucking freezing. I don't know. Maybe they had a power outage. Who the fuck knows? But I was gonna say, I was like, dude, like when you're talking about thunder in Orlando, I can tell you where there's not thunder, and that's at the Wells Fargo Center where the Flyers play. But when the Sixers play, there's thunder. But when the Flyers play, it's non-existent at all.
Yeah,
it's fucking embarrassing.
Yeah,
like, I feel bad for Carter Hart, dude. The
Yeah.
guy is like literally the best thing we have. He's a prodigy, and like now he's on this shitty franchise at the moment. And I don't care if he leaves because it'd be for the better of his career to win a cup. Like, what?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But yeah, the Flyers are sliding big time, man. It's rough, and unfortunately, every sports franchise kind of goes through one of those periods where, you experience some really high highs and some really low lows, and but it's harder to have that happen in a place like Philadelphia or Boston or New York, where the sports culture is just so intense, and from Eagles fans throwing snowballs at Santa
and batteries. Don't forget the batteries.
and batteries.
That's some
too.
lethal fucking shit right there.
For sure is. But even all of the opportunities. I've been a Mets fan my whole life, and I've had a couple of opportunities to go see the Mets play at Citizens Bank Park against the Phillies, and that is another brutal thing, man. I mean, it's I guess they said it best in that episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they talk about how passionate Philly fans are and they'll just hammer you,
It's so true.
But Philly is kind of interesting because, so like the alternative music culture in Philly, especially the hardcore culture with, This Is Hardcore every year. And like, if you look, it's so funny if you like watch some of the Hate 5-6 videos every year that they post of This Is Hardcore, you always see, I would say 20% of the crowd, they're either in Sixers gear or Flyers gear or Eagles gear. Man, it's a real deal crossover in Philly, man. It really is.
We just take pride in our sports, and then it correlates with music too. Like that's why I applaud like the ABR, because Jake's like a huge Bruins fan. That's fine, whatever. That town is actually absolutely spoiled with championships, but JB's a fucking Eagles fan, and like he reps that shit on his guitars and all that shit. Like we're passionate because I think Philly's spoiled to a point where it's like you don't get there. Like we're like the kings of edging. It's like we get so close to like winning it all, and it's just like but it just completely goes away. I'm like, this is so fucked up. Like, because we were sport with the Flyers were actually pretty good a couple of years ago. I remember when the Flyers played the Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup last time and we lost, and I was like, wow, I thought we actually had a chance. But
and didn't our homie Evan write a song about that, Tom?
Oh yeah, of course he did. That's and he's an interesting bird, right? Because he reps Philly all the time, but in reality, my man Evan, from Into It Over It, is a Cherry Hill guy, right? So like he's, I guess by proxy you're a Philly guy, but like you're really from New Jersey. So
so
I don't know, man. He said he grew up right across the bridge, so he was a big time Flyers fan and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, like it's Philly really has that culture kind of deep in its roots. And that's one of the things, I kind of love about Philly, but that's kind of something I think I'd want to talk to you about just a bit, even kind of moving away from hockey a bit, but just like sort of the culture of coming up in Philadelphia and being so kind of ingratiated in that music culture. So are you, when you say like you're from Philly, like you've been in Philly, like has it been pretty much your whole life?
I say it because I don't know where people, I don't want people to know where I live. I almost said that like messed up.
No, that's cool.
Times. But so I'm like 30 minutes in the suburbs outside of Philadelphia, which in every direction. Yeah. I did work in Philadelphia Center City for 6 years.
Okay.
So that is something that like I just,
for sure.
I love that city. You know what I mean? Like growing up, the entire thing. Yeah.
But as far as like you saying, living, 30 minutes from Philly, but like that's kind of been your whole life. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
So then, I mean, for that, I mean, you grew up in like a pretty fucking rich, alternative music, kind of sphere there. So, I mean, I guess like, to get you to tell maybe a Philly story or two, like, do you have like a memory of like one of the first kind of shows you went to in Philly and how that kind of shaped you, in becoming a drummer and a musician and kind of, going on the path you did?
My first show was like 13. I was a teenager, obviously, but it was across the river. It was at It was it was in New Jersey, but you know, you could see Philly from where the lawn seats are.
Sure.
It definitely put me into this music career for sure. Like I said, I was 13, but it was My Chemical Romance, taking The Used, and Alkaline Trio. When Three Cheers was like starting to really hit, you know, the mainstream and be on TV all the time. Saw it live, immediately was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
So, but the Philly scene's got great people, man. Like there's bands like Phantoms out there. They're on the up and coming, or Wonder Years, or Goalkeeper. Like we have a pretty good collective amount of bands coming from the scene. And like I used to go to the basement shows all the time, and like, dude, like you would get some, you know, diamonds in the rough every once in a while. It was kind of fucking cool. $5, 2 kegs. You know, it's shitty beer, but whatever.
Hey, man, listen, you know,
someone's got to pay the band.
Beer is beer. And I remember, you know, just like to kind of tell like a cool little Philly story, given kind of where they are now. But the first time I ever saw Soul Glow was in a basement in Philly. And they played to maybe 20 people. And now they're on Epitaph Records, you know, I mean, like, and, you know, that's another band that, you know, I think kind of embodies the spirit of Philly in so much that Philly is such a diverse place, and there's so much in terms of a melting pot of ethnicities, and you know, and people. And Soul Glow, I think, really encapsulates that, you know, in that, you know, like I said, hardcore for a long time, you know, other than maybe like your Dag Nasties, whereas a predominantly white space, right? You know, for a long time, and then you know, slowly but surely, Philly was kind of one of those areas that kind of embraced it, you know, and, you know, from that you get, you know, bands like, you know, Jesus Piece, and like, you know, some of these bands that have, you know,
Pananashi, so fucking sick live, dude.
Yeah. But like, you know, that's, I think, one of the most wonderful things about Philadelphia is that diversity is not just like, it's not like a virtue signaling thing. It's like a real part of that culture. And there are a lot of other places in the country that are trying to adopt it, but they're only trying to adopt it because, you know, they're getting hammered because they're not. But
that's just who we are. We're just a community. That's how we've always been, though. That's the crazy thing.
And that's the wonderful thing about, you know, the community in Philly is that, you know, it didn't need to evolve because people said, hey man, it's you know, it's time you stop whitewashing this kind of music. It's, you know, it was always diverse. So I think that's a wonderful thing about Philly. And I have a soft spot for Philadelphia, man. I've seen a tremendous amount of shows in that city. You know, some one of a kind experiences, man. I got to go see Texas Is the Reason when they reunited, and that was something that was super important to me. You know, I got to see Converge play in Philly, which was a one of a kind experience. Of course, I got to see the Wonder Years in Philly, and I got to see one of my favorite bands of all time, you know, this band called The Progress, who are, you know, now Into It Over It kind of, you know, is the extension of that. But, you know, they played in Philly. I got to see them play at Union Transfer. I mean, it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. So has a very, very, you know, real soft spot for me. And I just, you know, always love to get to talk to people who kind of grew up in that culture. So really is very, very cool.
Yeah, plus you got like, I mean, Circus Survive's not from Philadelphia, they're from Doylestown, but like they're a close, like, you know,
for sure,
native band and war on drugs and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Quick story though, because we were talking about state champs earlier. Derek actually wore a Ben Simmons jersey when they were on that tour. I was like, dude, no, you're wearing the wrong jersey, bro. No, it's supposed to be Embiid, brother. It's not supposed to be Simmons, that crybaby bitch. Thank God it's gone. And he's gonna actually be at the Wells Fargo Center on Thursday, but he's not suiting up.
Yeah, that probably would have that would have been rough, man, if he would have played that game. I mean,
if he's sitting on that bench, dude, he's definitely getting booed 100%.
Oh, absolutely. And for everything that Simmons put the poor city of Philly through, and all of his consternation and all that nonsense, man, I get it. But you know, like, it's funny to talk about like 90s alternative culture and 90s hockey, because, you know, I feel like it doesn't really get more 90s than a guy like Eric Lindros. I mean, like, the guy has what, Mikey, like 38 concussions in his life?
Yeah, he could have been up there, in the like Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux conversation if it wasn't for those concussions. Honestly,
Yeah.
like just the power forward that he was. It was
Mhm.
unfortunate, and the Islanders, like historically, wanted to ride that wave and drafted his brother, who was significantly worse, and they
Way
just like
worse.
tried to sell it to the Islander fan base,
Mhm.
like, yes, we just drafted the next Eric Lindros, when all the scouts were like, no, you didn't just draft him. Like, this guy's probably not going to make the NHL.
Yep.
And like, they actually put like his name on the back of jerseys and were like selling him in the team store. And I think he played like 10 games, like something ridiculous.
It wasn't about his hockey acumen, man. It was just about his last name.
Last
and
name,
Islanders,
that's it.
the Islanders trying to sell tickets because it was in that era when they were at their dog shittiest of shit.
That sounds very desperate for a franchise, but
I mean,
it was.
You want to talk about desperation for the Islanders? I mean, if you just Google New York Islanders 1990s, and you're gonna hear some shit, man. You're gonna hear some shit.
Well, it's so funny. I'm sure you guys have heard of like the Anna Sorokin like Netflix show, or Anna Delvey.
Anna Delvey, yeah. It's definitely
yeah. She was the one that
like almost pulled off this crazy, like she claimed to be this German heiress, like that it was going to have this huge trust fund turned over to her.
Yep.
And like was going to open this like multi-million-dollar like exclusive like club, like kind of like a country club, but like an arts centered one.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like this close to pulling it off. Like she almost got banks to just give her money because she said she had money, and like was super confident and like I said, like this close to pulling it off. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, hold my beer. Like the New York Islanders had an owner that got away with it. He did it.
Sure as hell did.
Like the New York Islanders had a guy that had less than $10,000 to his name buy a professional sports franchise. Like, and he did it. Like, and he almost got away with it as well. And he was that close too. Like if the MSG TV deal would have went through like a week earlier, he would have gotten away with it. Yeah. And he might have still been our owner to this day.
It's just insane.
Oh God, that's so insane. I mean, this article literally says like it was the most dysfunctional team in the 90s. Like,
oh yeah.
just full on dysfunction. But luckily, as Islanders fans, we've been through the ringer, man. And this year's really not a great indicator of, kind of them clawing out of the barrel. But like the past couple of years, they've been a successful team, and they've kind of almost for a while kind of came up as like the premier New York team. And now this year's kind of the winds have shifted a bit, but it's I think the reason that hockey is such an interesting sport is that they talk about football and they say any given Sunday, but realistically for the NHL, you could probably say any given season, right? Because I mean, there are always teams that are awful and then they have a good draft, or they make some moves in the offseason, or they switch up their lines and all of a sudden they catch fire. It's just kind of wild that way, but it makes for interesting watching because, the one thing I could say about the NBA, unfortunately, is a lot of times it gets just pervaded by the same teams, the same teams being successful over and over again. And after a while, they can get a little boring, but, not that we're an NBA podcast at all, but I mean, some of the moves that were made, approaching the trade deadline were kind of wild. I really shook things up in the NBA, but yeah, so hockey something else. So I guess, George, kind of one last question just to kind of put you on the spot here. Did you ever get an opportunity to see the Flyers play live?
Yeah, dude, I saw him play like at least a couple times. I mean, this was back
awesome.
in like I want to say 2008, 2007.
Cool.
Friend's mom had box seats because of the job she worked for, and we went there. And hockey is honestly like one of my favorite live sports to watch. I don't like going to see the NFL live at all. There's just too much going on. Like, it's cool when you go to a Birds game for sure, but like the stadium's like so obnoxiously big to where the actual playing field is like relatively small. But yeah, there's no bad seat when I watch hockey or baseball hockey or basketball in an arena. My one buddy, Zach Rothsberg, shout out to him. I hope he's doing well. He lives in Florida. He got tickets to a Lightning Flyers game. I want to say like back in 2016, 17, or 18. And he came up from Florida. I let him stay at my place, and we went. And it was snowing. It was cool. Went to Wells Fargo Center. Flyers won. It was a good time. And his dad used to play for the Eagles for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
So it's cool. So he's a Philly native. So he's a fan of both the Lightning and the Flyers. But dude, I love going to those games. You know what's fascinating though? When you were talking about this whole franchise thing with like how big of a disaster it was, I was so intrigued by the GM with how, or whoever, picked that draft for the Golden Knights, because they went to the Stanley Cup in their first year. They went 2 years in a row, right? They lost both.
They went. It was the first year.
And then they went pretty far the second.
And they went
year.
pretty deep the second year. But yeah, incredible.
But that's incredible to actually like pick apart players from the entire league in itself and go to a Stanley Cup and actually compete. I was watching all of their games.
Yeah. And the Knights were such a fun franchise to watch, because really, I think a lot of people would probably attest to this, but the Golden Knights just kind of picked this like team of misfits, and
awesome.
But to be truthful, they banded together and they were like, hey, if we're gonna be the guys that nobody else wanted, like, fuck them all. We're gonna show the entire league that we mean business. And I think a lot of NHL fans were hoping that the Seattle Kraken, who just came into the league this past year, were going to have that kind of same fire. And sadly, they're not. They just weren't able to pick it up. The Golden Knights were kind of the anomaly there. But yeah, I mean, like bringing a franchise to Vegas in an area where nobody thought anybody would give a damn about hockey. And I remember going on record saying it. I'm like, oh, this is going to be miserable. The Knights aren't going to have any real fans. It's just going to be people getting comp seats that spent too much money at the casinos. But egg on my face, dude, because they are one of the most rabid fan bases in the entire NHL. Like, and the Nashville Predators, another team that like you would never in 100 years think that Nashville, Tennessee would be synonymous with hockey in any way, shape, or form. But Smashville, man, Preds fans are just out of control.
Have you ever been to Nashville, Tom?
I've been, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome.
Well, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy because I was just there for the first time. But my family lives out there. We went there for the holidays. But dude, it's literally like right at the end of Broadway. Well, not the end of Broadway, but like where everything is with Broadway, like all the cool bars or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That stadium's right there, and then you go across the bridge, and the Nissan stadium's right there for the Tennessee Titans. I was like, whoever put this together is a fucking genius. Like, and I mean, all bars and walking distance.
Yeah, but you guys in Philly, like when you kind of created that triangle, was awesome. You've got the Link right there, you've got Wachovia right there, and then the other one that I can't think of. Citizens Bank Park. Yeah, exactly.
But then Xfinity Center's like still there too.
It's always packed.
Yep.
Always,
oh yeah.
No matter what. Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, but we all show up.
And that's something that like I love. I really think that like more cities, should they have the room to build it, should adopt that kind of like, centralized like centers where everything could be close to one another, because it creates this camaraderie. Like it's tough when like you think about like Florida, for instance, right? Where the the Bolts play Anomaly and where Raymond James is. I mean, they're kind of close to one another, but I mean, like you've got Miami and you've got Sunrise where the Panthers play, and then you've got Jacksonville and like all this, and it's like everything is so far away from each other that like it's hard to create like that kind of like real like calamity of events with like everybody kind of being in the same place and loving it all at once. But yeah, Nashville's got it right, man. The fact that Bridgestone and where the Titans play, I can't think of the name, are kind of all right in that same spot. Nissan, yep. And then of course all right there with all the honky tonk bars on Broadway and stuff, man. It's a hell of an experience. But
genius.
But yeah, I mean, like Vegas is growing strong. I mean, and they took a rabid fan base in Oakland, and I mean the Raiders fans are insane.
Yeah, I know.
And
And now
and
they're
they
even more insane.
and they moved him to Vegas, and they're just crazier now. So
Yeah.
I love it. I love it when secondary markets get teams and they end up, really panning out. Like it's unfortunate in hockey, right? You had like the Atlanta Thrashers that didn't really pan out. They didn't come to fruition. And you've got a team, unfortunately, like the Phoenix Coyotes, who are probably, in a short while might end up kind of moving somewhere and doing something else. But the fact that, the Golden Knights and the Preds, and, from what I'm understanding, even though they're not having a great first season, the Kraken, there's
so genius. Dude.
Yeah,
it looks so awesome.
Mm-hmm. And that's just crazy to think about, man. It really is.
I'm surprised the Lions haven't left Detroit yet. I'm thinking they should just go to fucking Toronto and have a football team. But that's just my opinion.
The one thing they're saying about the NFL, not to get too deep into it, but the one thing they're saying is they're really trying to find a franchise that's going to flounder so deeply that they can just ship one of them off to London, because that's kind of what they seem to want to do.
Yeah. I disagree.
Yeah,
with that, I could totally see it.
The logistic nightmare of that is insane. Could you imagine that? I mean, it's bad enough in the NHL that you have to go as far as Tampa Bay to Vancouver, which is like literally like thousands of miles. Could you imagine having to load all of these football players onto, a transatlantic flight?
Plus, the Bucks are going to play in Germany this year. Like, what is going on? Like, are we trying to become worldwide? Like, I don't understand that concept. But I can totally see it, like from Florida to fucking Canada. It is very far.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. But for the love of the game, I guess. So I got one last question for you, George. I've been itching to ask this to you all night long. So, you being a podcast guy, we're podcast guys. So if you could pick one person, dead or alive, to be your next guest on your next episode of your podcast, can be anybody from any walk of life, who would you choose?
Well, it would. I mean, could I just make it and cheat a little bit where it could be two people?
Sure, do it.
Yep.
All right. So these two people were the start of my music career, biggest influencers, especially my mentor, my drum teacher. He's a father figure to me. Mm-hmm. I would love to have him and his son sit down with me in the room and just have a conversation. I don't know how to go about it with segment wise, but his long story short. So unless you want me to get in depth into it, but he taught me drums as a mentor since I was the age of 13. Mm-hmm. And I listened to bands like Linkin Park and Breaking Benjamin and all those like bands, like, growing up as a kid. So
what's they call them, like butt rock? Are those kinds of bands?
Technically, yeah, Nickelback, dude. Oh my god,
I don't get that.
I don't get it either.
Tom, do you get it? Because it's just our buddy Justin from Out of Time dropped that term, and I'm like, it's rock from your butt. Okay.
Rock from your butt. But continue, please, George. Continue.
I call it buck rock. Buck rock. I mean, like 3 Days Grace, Saliva, Crossfade. We can go.
Papa Roach.
I love Papa Roach. Yeah. So when he knew I was starting to take the liking into drumming, and I showed him what I listened to and all that stuff, and he gave me a CD. I took the CD home and I listened to it. I got fucking hooked. I got hooked on the CD. I went back to him the next week and I was like, dude, like, this band is awesome. Like, like, how do you know them? Like, I would never have thought that he would be into like the modern, like pop punk, like alternative sound, because, he's like a jazz musician. He's definitely, I would say at the time, probably in his like mid 60s or something. And he pointed at the back of the album. He's like, you see that dude right there? That's my son. And I was like, no fucking way. His son is Frank Iero of My Chemical Romance. Wow. So I was like, dude, like, do you want to go see him live? Mm-hmm. I said, fuck yeah, absolutely. So this correlation to the whole podcast, where that was my first concert, he invited me to it because, I was so into drumming and I wanted to get into music. So I fucking had the best time of my life. I got a secondary high. And he got the seats because someone was smoking something in front of me, and I got the munchies on the way home as a 13-year-old. But
incredible,
dude. If I could have Cheech and his son Frank, like, I've talked to Frank a couple of times. Fucking wonderful human being, super super intelligent, super humble.
Mm-hmm.
I would just love to sit with those two together and just have a conversation, because if it wasn't for either of them, I don't know where I'd be in this music industry. Like, whether it's inspiration or just like, just having an interest in it at all.
Yeah.
I think they deserve all the credit for what I've accomplished so far.
I love that. I love that, man. That is probably the most well thought out answer that I could have thought of, because I would have said something stupid. I would have been like Freddie Mercury or something like that. But I love that.
I would love to talk to Freddie Mercury. He's just not my number one, man.
That's
my number one's my mentor.
There you go. Freddie Mercury's number 2.
He was on the podcast already. He was on episode number 2, but I really want to have him and his son like sit down.
Yeah,
dude, the conversation we can have could be fucking endless.
Absolutely, man. I think that's a great thing to aspire to. And to be honest with you, man, with the way Limelight is going, I think it could be a reality for you, man. I really do. I think you're doing great things, and I think I think it's really, really a refreshing thing. But I don't know what say you up there in pink sweatshirt land,
dude. You're gonna talk shit about my sweet origami angel shirt?
Did you go see them?
I didn't. I wish I did. They didn't come to Charlotte.
Well,
that's your own fault. My pink hoodie today for this interview, as well as my pink cup.
Yeah, so, love your pink cup though.
Pink it up though.
You're just wearing maroon, repping our high school time.
Pat Maroon.
Dumb. Well, my question for you, George, because I've noticed that you pride yourself on giving a spotlight to some like unsigned bands or bands that you like truly believe in that just haven't gotten their chance yet. So like, not your Magnolia Park, because we've already talked about them, but like, what's another band that we should give a little bit of a spotlight to right now that you've been feeling recently, that maybe you discovered on TikTok, or maybe someone like submitted a request for one of your playlists or whatever, and you were like, yeah, this band is going to blow up?
Oh, a band that's going to blow up. Okay. Cause I have a bunch of bands in my head that I'm like, that I see a lot of, opportunity for them to grow, but I just don't know where they are at in their careers. Like I don't talk to them on a personal level. Some of them I do, some of them I don't. Especially through submissions. I'd say the one band right now that would be the next big thing is a band called Phantoms. They're from Philadelphia. Originally, from how I contacted them was through a mutual friend between the vocalist and I, with Alyssa. Dude, they're just so on top of their game with writing and creating really huge hit singles. I think their music is like top tier. Ban Camino meets Paris meets I don't know, something on the popular side. Maybe like a Gorillaz or something, but it's like, dude, they just have it. I saw them play Philly recently at the Milk Boy, and they absolutely crushed it. The show was sold out. They were easily the best band there that night. Alyssa has these fucking huge pipes that she could just sing without any hesitation. But I think they're the next big band too. And I'm not being biased because they're from Philly, but I do think that they're definitely on my radar for becoming very popular in the future.
Awesome, man.
Hell, love that. I got to check them out.
Yeah, I think we do. So, George, man, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us, man. We from one podcast to another, we're really, I guess the best word to say it is we're really grateful for you doing what you do, because without people like you, I mean, we wouldn't have a platform either. So the fact that you're out there, talking to unsigned bands and, perfecting your craft and essentially just giving an opportunity to people to have a little bit of a spotlight, to, do what they love is kind of exactly what we do. So, from the bottom of our hearts, we really do appreciate what you do. Big supporters of Limelight and will continue to be. Super stoked for Poeta too. Hope you guys got some good things on the horizon. But I guess real quick, if you want to just shoot out for our listeners, how they can get Limelight and Poeta in their ears, please just plug away.
Yeah, so we'll start off with Limelight. You can find the podcast episodes on all streaming platforms, including Google, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, as well as YouTube, just like the gents here over at Bar Down Breakdown. And as well as Poeta, we are on all streaming platforms. You can see our music videos over at CI Records, and we do a couple covers on our personal channel at Poeta. Our plugins for Poeta is all Poeta Band. Limelight, spoiler alert, I'm not going to say what I'm doing, but I'm actually going to be changing up the entire, not the brand, but my concept with Limelight. It's going to be a lot of cool things. So I'm a little stagnant right now because I'm working on like getting LLCs and trademarks. But right now I'll be releasing some videos that I've already or episodes I've already recorded. And I would say, keep an eye out on this year because it's going to get interesting. And I appreciate the both of you as well. This is a community. We have to support one another. Everybody has different opinions and influences and ideas and conversations. And all we're doing is really just bringing the best out of all of us. And that's what we should be doing moving forward. Yeah. So if it wasn't for you guys either, it'd be really hard for artists to really get their say out there too. So
awesome. Well, hey man, listen, we appreciate the love. And, we definitely love giving the love back in your direction. So, George, again, thank you so much. The Limelight Podcast, Poeta, really excited that you took the time to be with us. Really excited for what's on the horizon for Limelight in 2022. And, maybe sometime soon we'll get on an emulator and play some Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey. And I can show you what it's all about. But, George, man, thank you so much. You have a great night, and everyone, we appreciate you tuning in and listening. And Bar Down Breakdown every Tuesday. You'll hear from me and Mikey, and our next round of awesome people to be on here. So, George, thank you again, and everybody,
thank you, gents.
Have a great night.
Peace.
Much appreciated.